In Illness as a Metaphor, Susan Sontag states, illness is the night side of life I must honor as citizenship. Everyone who is born holds dual citizenship in the kingdom of the well and in the kingdom of the sick. Although we prefer to use the good passport, sooner or later each of us is obliged, at least for a spell, to identify as a citizen of that other place. I first came across this book and that quote when I was deep in research of adenomyosis and endometriosis. I have both of these conditions and I also have another autoimmune condition. I was trying to find a connecting point between these three conditions because my doctors have failed to kind of bring them together. And in my head, how adenomyosis and endometriosis behaves to me is like an autoimmune condition. So I decided to research and I went back to Google Scholar and journals and articles and real life research instead of just, looking at TikTok videos and YouTube videos of lived experiences of endometriosis and adenomyosis. Not that those videos are not helpful. Lived experiences help you feel like you are not alone and kind of gave me a structure around the kind of questions I'm supposed to ask my doctors, the kind of treatment I'm supposed to be seeking out, but it was still not enough. I felt information was very sparse and very limited. And even when you direct these questions to doctors, they keep on, I don't know, circling around the point and just saying, oh, we don't know, it's just a thing. And I was really exhausted by that answer. I felt like, there must be something, especially as someone who has, let me say now, three autoimmune conditions. I felt like there was a connective tissue between these three conditions. I just needed to find, something that supports this hypothesis. And I'd forgotten how much I love research. I'd forgotten how satisfying it is to prove or disprove your hypothesis. And I went deep into, reading articles and just first and foremost, the empowerment that comes with understanding your illness and understanding that it's not the end of the world. It's not as it's complicated, but it's not as complicated as people want it to seem. You are not you're not just a sum of your you're not just a sum of your illness. In Susan's book, she points out that using militaristic language in description of illness is doing more harm than good. She wrote this when she was battling breast cancer, if I'm not mistaken. So it was very much a current experience. We say, she's battling cancer, for example. So when we add such language, we kind of put it's you against your body. But in reality, we are our bodies and our bodies are us. So the moment we differentiate that during illness, you are against something in your body, it adds a layer of difficulty and, let me say honestly, disgust with yourself, because you're like, why am I suffering from this, or why am I the one battling this condition? And now when she wrote this was 1978, she was thinking of cancer and TB, how TB in her experience was used as a disease of inner passion. It shows creativity, it shows a sense of refinement. People wanted to get TB at some point because it looked good, which crazy. But again, we're not here to, I don't know, judge the people. We are judging the language that is associated with illnesses that are chronic, or now in my case, autoimmune. So the fact that we use militaristic language, one, she's battling this, and then it now adds another layer with doctors, where now it's doctors fighting this war. They are warring a war against this cancer in your body. They are warring a war against this autoimmune condition, and it removes a layer of, honestly, humanity and agency from you, the patient, because the doctor's end goal is for you to get better, for you to not have this condition. But then everything else is put aside. Your pain, your sadness, your fear, all that is put aside in the name of fighting this war. But the thing is, whether or not you're sick, you're still a human being. You have feelings, you have fears. And illness just makes it so difficult for you to process this. And then now you find doctors are very, they remove the human person who is suffering from these conditions, and then they add the idea that, they can't really be, understanding of you because they are fighting this disease. At least that's what I got from when she calls out the idea of losing agency. And now this journal by the Scandinavian Journal of Disability points out that with people with disabilities, again, I'm someone who has a disability, there's a loss of agency that comes with fighting an illness because everyone is busy fighting this. Even you yourself, you remove your feelings from it because you are thinking of eating right, you're thinking of doing everything right. And when all this fails, again, because it does fail, I'm currently gluten free, I'm mostly lactose and sugar free, and I still get flares. And sometimes I'm like, oh my god, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just, you know, get better? And the premise of autoimmune conditions is that it's the body attacking healthy cells that, don't have any sickness. So it's the body moving against itself. And when you're being questioned about, why you have an autoimmune condition, so what's stressing you, what are you doing that is leading to this, because there must be something you are doing to cause this. They don't say it explicitly, it's not stated as this is your fault, but it's not so different from that language. And now you yourself internalize that you are doing this to yourself. They must be, because again, it's an autoimmune condition, I must be causing it in some way. Either it's my lifestyle, either it's how I deal with my stress, either it's my fucked up genetics, but I am responsible for this in some shape, way, or form. Sontag is against the language that is put on illness. Even how when someone has like a very serious condition, people tell you it's, they can bring God into it. They'll say, it's a blessing in disguise. It's, God gives a lot to his strongest soldiers, which in my opinion is just bullshit. There's nothing, there's nothing. I go back to a quote when people are dying for their country's patriotism, and there's a quote something along the lines of it's sweet and proper to die for one's country. And I think to myself, even in illness, sometimes it's like they tell you it's sweet and proper to die of this chronic illness because, God. And I find that unrealistic because you are suffering. So, what Sontag calls for is a purified language when it comes to any illness. It's not a test, it's not a punishment, it's not a blessing, it's just a fact of life. Being ill is just a fact of life. And I like how she states that sooner or later, we are all obliged to be citizens of that other place. When you are ill with long term illnesses, chronic illnesses, it really feels like it's you alone. Again, I put this against my experience with all these conditions, and now with this quote and the book, you feel like it's you against the world. It's you suffering. It's always you because your age mates don't have chronic illnesses. They don't know what it is to manage. At least in my experience, my age mates, my friends, the people around my life, most of them don't know what it is to manage, chronic illnesses. They don't know the mathematics that goes through my head before I do every little thing. And it's been like this since I was a kid because again I have a disability. I've always been ill in some shape or form, so I always have to do a lot of mental math about where I am, what I'm eating, how I'm feeling. I'm always assessing symptoms. And sometimes you see your age mates and you think, oh my god, and it comes with this, you feel sorry for yourself and you're like, oh my god, this just, happens to me, and I'm so sucky, I'm clearly failing at being a human being. And then it also boils down to sometimes you feel so undeserving of things, undeserving of love, because who will put up with this shit? I myself don't want to put up with myself when I'm sick, right? But I liked how this book brought out that this is just a fact of life. It's something that I've been searching in my head for a while. Why does this happen? Like, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Am I cursed? You even bring things like, now, am I cursed? What what am I possibly doing to bring this upon myself? This, who have I angered and you just go on a loop, because it's not just one thing. Adenomyosis is very different to endometriosis. They share similarities. They share a pathology, but they're not the same condition. So they need different but similar. Again, I can't go into the depth of the differences and the similarities between these. I did write an article on Substack about just endometriosis in general, adenomyosis and how they connect, the argument that it could also be a form of cancer. And it's been really nice to, watch people's lived experiences on TikTok and Instagram, and just seeing that, you're not the only person in the world who knows the pain of these things. But I decided to delve deeper into research because I realized there's a gap of knowledge that doctors are not feeling, that, these people with lived experiences also are not feeling, because it's not their job. So I decided to go back to, research papers and articles, and just really challenge my brain to understand what this thing is that is affecting me so deeply, and why the answers I'm being given feel short and feel like excuses sometimes, because doctors just shove things down your throat. I don't know. It's especially when you're suffering from something as chronic as this. They want you to be well. They want you to have good quality of life. So they just really don't give you time to process. They just like, oh my god, you have to take this, and it goes back to again the journal, which was linking to Sontag's work, where agency is removed completely. Even your loved ones, people will always have this they give you now ideas and suggestions of what you're doing. Oh, you need to start taking this. But that's the thing. I'm tired of managing. I'm so exhausted. I am a human being at the end of it all. But sometimes it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like I am, I'm a symptom basket, and people are just trying to manage that. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, so I wrote a substack on trying to dilute. I don't know if dilute is the right word, but trying to bring together endometriosis, adenomyosis, cancer, and treatment, how these things connect. And reading those papers was very, it was very insightful. It's the most empowered I have felt about these diseases since I got diagnosed. And even finding a connection between the adenomyosis, endometriosis, and now my autoimmune condition. I have ulcerative colitis, which is a form of gastrointestinal autoimmune condition. I want to say it's a form of IBS, but then I might be mistaken in saying that. But it's a form of IBS. Let's go with that. And there's actually a journal article that connects the link between endometriosis and IBS. There's a high factor. If someone has endometriosis, they'll most likely have IBS. And if they have IBS, no, that's the other way around. So yeah, but the main point is endometriosis and IBS are linked. And I have ulcerative colitis and now endometriosis, adenomyosis. I think they should just make up one word if you have both, because saying two of them feels a lot. But yeah. And now I was trying to find out what I got first. A bit of a chicken and egg situation, because I got diagnosed with my ulcerative colitis in 2024, and then I got my formal diagnosis for endo and adeno last year. But the thing is, I've been having period symptoms since I was 17. So it doesn't really track which came first. But either way, they're connected. And now my issue was my doctors were not treating these conditions as connected conditions. And I felt like that was doing me more harm than good. And because again, when you're ill, you're not the loudest voice in the room. I know that sounds backwards because you are the patient, but in my experience, when everything else comes first, they don't look at what you want, they look at what they know and what they are seeing in your body. Everything else just feels, like you're complicating issues. It's rare for a doctor to actually consider what you're saying. And, someone will tell you, oh, then just get another doctor. But it's not as easy as it sounds, especially, again, if it's a condition that needs quick response. So I felt like there was a connection between these conditions and how they, how they interact in my body. But because I wasn't getting answers from doctors, and I wasn't also getting answers online, because again, lived experiences, as I've said, are nice, but not every, we're not the same. I decided to just go into papers, and I was so fascinated. And I'm still reading. I'm still, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medic by profession. So a lot of the language evades me, and it takes me a while to digest everything that's been written. And I think I'll do more of that. I will research more and dilute the language for people who are also suffering. Actually, I'm not supposed to now use the word suffering. People who are ill, because that's the fact. You're not suffering. Okay, I am. The pain is a lot sometimes. It's suffering. But again, we are going back to using language that doesn't, add weight to something that's already weighty. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to distill more of that information and write it up on my Substack for people who are suffering from, these conditions, and they're feeling, under equipped. Because again, I'm not expecting anyone to come and make this easy for me. It's just doctors just want you to, take your medication and get better. And I don't blame them for that, but I do blame them for their horrible, bedside manner. There's something so humiliating. Let me use that word. I was telling my friend that there's nothing that was I telling my friend, was I telling myself? Anyway, there's nothing that humiliates me further than going to a hospital, getting a procedure done that I don't want, and I'm forced to because the condition demands it, and I have to put aside my feelings, my humanity, my personhood for this illness. But I think Sontag understood this, and she wrote about it so beautifully. And I think this book is something I'll go back to a lot, especially that quote to remind me that I am not alone. Illness is the night side of life, and it's not somewhere where you'd want to be, but either way, you are forced to be there. But how you treat it as a fact of life is much better than how people try to explain illness like a punishment. I get that a lot. Oh, if you need A, if you need B, if you are this kind of person, then you will not be ill. And I find that so fucking stupid, because nobody wants to be sick. And I just find myself to be, or if you eat this and you do this and you've cried more, which, like, I wouldn't want an autoimmune condition. Trust me, it just happened. Now I have three. I don't know. It might be a genetic thing. And there's even I was reading about now how they hypothesize endometriosis and adenomyosis, start in the body, some form of cause. And there was a stem cell theory, and I was just like, this has nothing to do with me. Like, obviously it's my stem cells, leaking into the endometrial tissues and creating a chain reaction. But I can't control. I don't even know where my stem cells are in this body. Where are they? In the bone marrow? And how do I communicate to my bone marrow to stop leaking, for example? That's just a hypothesis for why the condition starts. It's a chain reaction of things. It's not just one thing. But it's so interesting how, again, the onus of responsibility falls on me. I find that crazy. Yeah, so illness as a metaphor. And I hate to use the word meditate on this, but I've actually been meditating on how the language I use when I'm describing my illness, and the shame I feel for having a disability, having chronic conditions, not being able to be outside as much as I would want to, or as much as I'm expected to due to my age, being as active as I would want to, because I really feel like I'll enjoy being an active person, but sometimes my body doesn't allow. So what am I supposed to do? And I think I'll go back to that point where now Susan points out you just need to use factual language, because illness is a fact of life. It's not a punishment, it's not a curse, it's not a blessing. It's nothing but a stage. Some of us got there faster than others, but we are all walking on the same path. Be it a cold, be it an autoimmune condition, be it cancer. Again, cancer scares me. Um, all the conditions I have are precursors to cancer. Ulcerative colitis might be a precursor to colon cancer. Endometriosis unmanaged might be an ovarian cancer risk. Adenomyosis might be an endometrial cancer risk. So all I'm seeing here is just cancer, and I get scared and I think, oh my god, I should just end it like right now, because I don't know. I'm not waiting around to have cancer. But nobody wants to have cancer. Nobody goes around and thinks, oh, let me walk around and let me spot some cancer. I just feel like I want to get in bed with cancer. But now, stripping away my fears and the language again that I've been taught to associate with disease, and the fears that people have put on disease, it's a fact of life. If it's not cancer, there's just going to be something. Our bodies are not, again, we are living in a world of productivity and always improving your body. People are always doing high rocks and going to the gym, which great, good stuff. I'm not saying those are not things to aspire to do. Great. If you want to run 25 kilometers, there are run clubs, there are, people drink all the matchas. Is matcha good for you, or it's just a good drink? I don't know. It's green, so I just assume it's good. But people work towards having, I don't say elevated body, but a body that is working in peak condition. It will fail at some point, because we are all organs and mush and blood and things. No, I don't like thinking about the inside of the body too much. Give me the heebie-jeebies. But yeah, we are just meat, literally meat in sacks. And sometimes the meat rots, sometimes the meat, gets infected, and you have to deal with it. So thinking about it as a fact and erasing the responsibility of the illness, the responsibility of being a sick person, just makes it better for me to kind of to wrap the idea of being ill in my head. So yeah, I am ill sometimes, most times, and I do have a disability, and it's a fact of life.